¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Yo soy Sofía Macías, autora de Pequeño, Cerdo, Capitalista, y para todos los que siguen el comercio electrónico, que les gusta comprar o que quieren vender por internet, hoy les traemos una entrevista que les va a interesar muchísimo porque, como sabrán, Alibaba se está expandiendo en el mundo y uno de los países a los que va a llegar es México. Y pues para saber un poquito cómo un maestro de inglés que no tenía mucho como idea de negocios y que tampoco era así el tipo más tecnológico del mundo, logró generar un imperio que lo convirtió en el hombre más rico de Asia y en uno de los hombres más ricos del mundo también, está por ahí del lugar 20, además de ayudar a muchos comerciantes en su país, pues entrevistamos ahora sí que a un espía, a alguien que nos puede contar de primera mano porque estuvo en la compañía cómo fue el crecimiento de Alibaba. Les estoy hablando de PORTER Erisman, el autor de Alibaba's World, que es un librazo que les recomiendo mucho. Ya está en librerías, ya está en formato ebook, así que échenle un buen ojo. Y PORTER Erisman nos contó pues un poco los talentos que tenía Jack Ma, estas lecciones que él cree que le pueden servir a cualquier emprendedor sin importar su giro, y algo bien interesante que él tuvo que, digamos, vivir, que es cómo lograr adaptarte a una cultura que es totalmente diferente a la tuya. Les tengo una pequeña advertencia y es que pues justamente como Porter Erisman, pues su lengua materna es el inglés, este video está en inglés, pero va a tener subtítulos, así que aprovechen todo lo que este gran autor tiene para compartirnos. Espero que les guste el video y en los comentarios cuéntenos si se les antojó leer el libro.
Yeah, I think the best thing that Jack Ma had was that he built a team that was a real team. You know, it wasn't a collection of all-stars. So a lot of our competitors when I was at Alibaba, a lot of them failed because they had people with fancy Harvard MBAs or great resumes, but they didn't work very well together as a team. So a lot of times you look at a football team, and maybe they don't have a single all-star, but they get really far in the World Cup because they just pass the ball, they work as a team. And I think that was Alibaba's sort of capability, and that was Jack Ma's talent, is bringing together people who didn't have a great expertise, but finding a way for them to work together to, you know, build a giant tech company and take on a company like eBay or Amazon.
Yeah, actually, you had to do like the kind of Chinese eBay launch, right? Like
right.
You had like it was Taobao. I had a question related to the mission because I think what was very clear in Alibaba were like the mission and the three goals you had. Like you wanted to connect small and medium companies with the commerce, with the world commerce. You wanted Jack Ma wanted a company that would last at least a lifetime, 80 years, and he wanted to be in the top 10 websites in the world.
Right.
So how important is it to have like this kind of mission and goals for the daily decision making that you have in a company? And what would you tell entrepreneurs that are trying to design or decide which is their mission and their goals, their BHAG?
Right. Yeah, I think one of the great appeals of Alibaba, you know, Jack Ma started his career as an English teacher. And if you're an English teacher, you don't measure your value based on how much money you make, especially in China at that time. You'd make $50 a month or something. You measure your sort of value to society by the impact you have on your students and society. And so it's interesting that Jack, you know, a lot of bosses in China, they try to get people to chase after the boss. You know, let's please the boss. That's the goal. Maybe in Mexico, some too. In China, that happens a lot, but what Jack Ma did is he said, don't chase after me, to chase after our goals. And he set out giant goals that really appeal to anyone. And the three that you mentioned, but also, you know, we measured our impact as a company by how many jobs we were creating for entrepreneurs, by the impact we were having, by how well we could lift entrepreneurs out of poverty in China. And so, you know, those kind of goals don't appeal to everyone. But I do think to most people, you're going to be more motivated if you have a goal that's even beyond just yourself or your company's a greater good. And that was a talent of his, is making these bigger goals important to the company so we could realize our impact was more than just our bank accounts or the company becoming huge.
And do you have any advice related to how to communicate those goals to your team, or how to choose those goals?
Yeah, sure. If you're a boss or an entrepreneur, the most important thing is to speak from the heart and be sincere and authentic. And so I think the reason a lot of people are kind of cynical about tech companies talking about changing the world is now it's become something that everyone thinks they need to talk about. And so a lot of CEOs, when they talk, it just doesn't feel authentic. So I think it's more for a leader to look inside themselves, look at the impact their company can have, and just speak authentically. When I first started working with Alibaba, there were PR people trying to tell Jack Ma, don't say this, don't say that, speak with your hands in a certain way. And he asked me, he said, Porter, what do you think I should do? I said, do what got you this far, which is just be yourself. So that's very important for entrepreneurs.
Be authentic. And you also mentioned just a while ago that being rich or trying to become rich really, really fast is not like a good method. I remember reading in the book that like when you started in Alibaba, you saw like the company projections and all the perspectives, and you said like, wow, I'm gonna become rich in 1 year. Why is like not thinking about that is important for entrepreneurs, or not just doing business to become rich quickly?
Yeah, well, in my book, I admit that when I joined the company, I'm talking about all these ideals, but yeah, when I joined the company, I even sat down because I had been working, I'd made, $3,000, lived off $3,000 a year in China myself. And so when I got this job offer with Alibaba, I thought, wow, how long until I become a millionaire? I was getting excited. Then the internet bubble burst, and basically the company had to start from scratch again. And so luckily those of us who had originally always been motivated by something besides money, we said, you know what, let's go back to basics. And if we focus on other things, then the money will come. I think in business, if you start chasing the money, you're most likely not going to get it. It's like the people who reach in the cookie jar, try to take too many, they can't get their hand out of the cookie jar. If you focus really long term and build something that really helps customers and block out all the noise from all the media and the analysts and just do what you think is right, then in the end, you will make money. But if you make money the goal, there's a good chance that you'll lose it. You'll never make it, yeah.
And related also to blocking the noise, what about competition? What did you learn, or how did you handle competition in Alibaba?
Right, so one interesting thing, when I worked at Alibaba, I felt every day I learned a new lesson. So I have in my book a chapter called Alibaba and the 40 Lessons.
Yeah.
And so I think that what I learned about competition is, when I came to Alibaba, I told Jack, I said, look, why don't we just copy this competitor? And because we're in China, we can keep our costs down, but we can just copy everything they do. And he said, that's ridiculous. We need to innovate. And so I think what Jack Ma would tell us was, learn from your competitors, but never copy them. I tried to hand him a book about Google once because we were beginning to compete with Google. I said, hey, Jack, this is a great book about Google. Do you want to read about it? He said, no, I don't want to read it because then I'll actually be too biased on what they did. And we need to innovate in our own way. So a lot of the things in the book are how I came in kind of a typical, to be honest, a little bit business dummy. And by the time I left, I was much smarter because I'd seen so many of my own assumptions challenged and changed.
That's great. And something that I think is super interesting about your experience is that you had to adapt to very different cultures. So what would you recommend to an entrepreneur that wants to go to other markets, or to someone who wants to work in a company, a startup, or a big company in such a different country as US and China?
Yeah, so I think, these days any company can be global, and there's no reason, I think companies in Mexico shouldn't just think, oh, I want to be the biggest in Mexico. They can be the biggest in Latin America, or even think totally globally. But to do that, you have to be able to cross cultures. And so the biggest thing I learned when you go to another culture, especially in business, is to try as much as possible to just open your mind and don't judge anything. Just look at what's going on, listen and learn. Because a common mistake, when I used to hire foreigners to come into Alibaba, they would spend the first 3 months complaining about how everything was worse and everything wasn't as bad or wasn't as professional or it was different. And a lot of it's just human nature. People think that something that's different is maybe inferior. But actually, if you have an open mind, you say, maybe these things that are different, there's actually great things about it that I can pull out of. So I would say keep an open mind, really go with the flow. And then, as you get to know more about the culture and learn about it, then you can begin to think, how can I operate in here? But don't judge things, especially don't look down on the way things are done.
Besides, if you wanted things to keep the same, you should stay in your country.
Exactly.
What's the point of traveling? Well, I have a final question. Alibaba is about to launch in Mexico, like in a couple of months or so. So what do you think that small and medium companies can expect? Do you think it's going to be disruptive, change the e-commerce and export sector?
Yeah, I think, a lot of times when I went to the US or Europe, people say, oh, there must be some Armageddon coming. So Alibaba's coming, they're going to take over the world. The important thing to realize, there is a difference between Alibaba and Amazon. Alibaba is really just a platform that other people sell on. And so I think the good news is that, already it's happening in Mexico. But Alibaba coming and paying attention is going to spark a golden era of e-commerce in Mexico and Latin America. And if you are selling something, you'll have even more platforms with Alibaba coming to sell and reach people from all around the world. So mostly it's an opportunity. It's opportunity to sell from Mexico into China. But the people who embrace it now are going to be successful 10 years from now. The people who wait are going to have a tough time.
Well, this was very interesting, and I think everybody should take advantage of this book, the experience. Anyone who wants to sell anything in the modern world, because e-commerce is getting so big, even in Mexico it's slow. So where can they see, for example, your documentary? Where can they reach you?
Well, here's the good news. I had always wanted a Spanish version of my book.
And here it is.
And if I can promote it for a second, the reason I wrote the book is I thought it was an inspiring story. If I had wanted to make money, I should have stayed at Alibaba. But I wanted to tell this story because it's finally available in Spanish, so I think you can find it on all the bookstores and platforms. But to me, to have it in Spanish is great because now it's more accessible to readers throughout Mexico and Latin America.
Yeah, that's great. And do you have any Twitter account, website, anything? If you want to say how wonderful the book was.
Sure, you can write me on a Facebook or contact me on a Twitter. And it's Porter Erisman, at Porter Erisman is my Twitter.
Well, we really, really enjoyed the book in Pequeño, Cerdo, Capitalista, so we hope you do. We are going to put all the links down here, to write all the addresses where you can get it. And it's in Spanish, so take advantage of it. Thanks a lot for all of you to see this interview, and see you next week.